Hello everyone, I'm coming to you from my basement. I have Noah and Henry, my sons, here to help me. They were nice enough to share their Legos. It's an activity that we usually do in the lab, but unfortunately we're going to have to do this remotely. So we're going to talk about vehicle operation, and we're going to talk a little bit about helicopter safety. And to do those, we're going to have a scene, and we're going to talk about how to drive mostly through intersections. So the first thing for today, we're going to say this is our paramedic truck, and this is our ambulance in Delaware. It's a BLS ambulance, and we'll say we're going to have a fire truck on a scene and some other traffic that we're going to have to work around, pedestrians. And so one of the things that we're going to talk about is with the lights and sirens activated, we do have we are allowed to exceed the speed limit, although we want to do so very cautiously. The legal term is due regard. And we're asking permission for other vehicles to get out of the way of us, even though there's move over laws. If there is a crash, it's up to us to prove that we were acting safely, even if someone doesn't do that. So we always want to use a safe speed, and we want to try to maintain a cushion of safety. So when we're driving with the lights and sirens activated, I'm just going to turn on the lights now. When there's other traffic on the roadway, we want the other drivers to move to the right and to get out of our way. But when we do this, we want to try to have a cushion of safety so that if we have to swerve suddenly, we have room to do so. And when you're driving, we want you to think about, okay, if a driver stops or if that driver turns in front of you, what are you going to do? Where are we going to go? And think ahead, just like we do when we're taking care of patients, of what could happen. Because we want to try to maintain that cushion of safety. So, with that, when we're using the siren, there's going to be 3 frequencies of sirens. There's going to be the wail, which I'm not going to imitate. There's going to be the yelp, which is this. So this is called the yelp. And there's also what's called the high-low, which is used more in Europe. And so usually we're going to use the wail. I can't demonstrate it here. So when we're using the yelp, when we're going into an intersection, we want to change frequencies. This gets everyone's attention. If they hear one certain frequency of a siren, they're going to tone that out. And by changing the frequency, that gets everyone's attention and then lets you know that they're going to be going through an intersection or the traffic needs to move or something. So we're going to do that as we approach the intersection. We always want to try to move towards the left. If we can't get by a vehicle in the right lane, we're actually going to go around them. As long as traffic is clear coming in this direction, we're going to go over into the outline of oncoming train. When we get to an intersection, each lane is a separate. We're going to treat each lane as a separate intersection. We're going to stop, look both ways, go. When we get to the next lane, before we enter it, we want to clear that too, and then go through. We're going to do that, especially if there's a red light, but we want to do that even if we have the green light, even if we're legally allowed to go through the intersection too. Stop, clear every lane before we proceed in it. If we're going to make a right turn, change the sirens. If we can't get around the person in front of us, we're going to go around them to the left and turn right in front of them. As we're making this turn, you have to be really closely looking at this person to make sure they don't enter the intersection as we're turning. That's a safe way. But we're going to try to go towards the left and go around the vehicles that are on our right. One thing that we don't want to do is if we get to an intersection, we have our lights and sirens on. This person's here, and we cannot get around them. There might be a median here. Maybe there's vehicles in a turn lane. We never want to push this person into an intersection. We have flashing lights. We have warning signals when we enter an intersection. This vehicle doesn't. So we're setting them up to get struck if we push someone in. And your department may have policies about that. But for the most part, we just shut the lights off. Just if this is a situation, the safest thing, just turn the lights off and wait for the light to change. Some vehicles have an opticom that'll actually change the light, and that's really nice if you have it. If you don't, or if it's not working, turn the lights off, wait for the lights to change, turn them back on, and then go through the intersection. So one of the more dangerous parts of driving emergently is that in Delaware, if you're going on a call in the paramedic truck, there's always going to be an ambulance going with you. And sometimes you're responding together. Having multiple vehicles go through an intersection, it can be dangerous because the drivers will be here. They see the ambulance go through, they see one emergency vehicle go through, they hear their siren may be drowning out yours. So their siren may be drowning out yours, so they may not hear yours, they may just start through the intersection. So if you're behind an emergency vehicle that's going lights and sirens, you need to make sure be extra careful going through an intersection. For the same reason, we want to discourage using police escorts. Sometimes the police will offer to block lanes of traffic for you, and it's really nice that they really are trying to help, especially if it's a really high-profile call that you're on, but that's more dangerous. That's actually more dangerous. We want to try to discourage that. Find another way, and try to ask another way for them to help you if they offer to do that. The other thing is school buses. If a school bus has its warning lights activated, we always stop for that. No matter what the call is for, if you have lights and sirens on, you stop. The school bus driver should move kids back onto the bus and let you through, but as long as those lights are on, we should not proceed that. Same thing with school zones. We follow the speed limit set for the school zone. If it's an active school zone, we cannot exceed the speed limit through that school zone. So that's driving. So now we're going to talk a little bit about parking. And we're going to start by saying this is a garage, and there's a call in the garage. And think about, this is just a standard medical call. Where do we want to park? Well, if you're in the paramedic truck in the Suburban, you want to pull past the scene or in front of the scene. Either one. We want to let the ambulance, whoever's driving the ambulance, pick where they want to give them space to get in front of the residents so they can get in and out of it. And sometimes there's parking before, sometimes there's parking in front of them. But we want to leave room for them to have as little space between where the patient's going to be and where the ambulance is. And we want to leave them egress. So we want them to be able to get off at the scene, especially if it turns into something that's critical. We want to be able to just get in the ambulance and get out. We do not want to try to, if we can avoid moving a vehicle in order for the ambulance to get out, we want to do that. So when you're pulling up at a scene, it's important. Think about where you're going to park and where that, what's going to provide best movement of the patient to the ambulance and best egress. Okay. If we have a crash, actually the books can conflict about where you should park at a crash scene, but you're probably going to have a fire truck. You'll definitely have at least one ambulance, and the paramedic truck and law enforcement. So when there is a crash, this book recommends that you pull past the crash. And the reason for that is if you pull past it, that gives you egress. You can move the patient in. And the other thing is, on the back of the ambulance, above the doors, there's white floodlights that if you open your doors, all the vehicles coming behind you are going to be blinded by that. So that's poor design. We want to, whatever we do with our lights, we want to avoid having white lights shine into oncoming drivers. We can't turn these off. Other lights you can adjust on the console. These you can't turn off. For whatever reason, the back lights go open, the floodlights come on. That can blind drivers that are coming at you. So the general rule is let the ambulance park 100 feet past the crash. Have the fire truck, the first driving fire truck should park in front, and they're your buffer for traffic. So ambulance in front of the scene so that they can have egress. Ambulance past the crash, so you have egress, and the crash is a buffer between where you are and the patient. Okay, so last up. So there's an ambulance, vehicle into a structure, multiple patients. So we're going to call aviation. We're going to say we're...
Dad.
Thank Thank you, Noah.
Yeah. Down.
So we're near the trauma center, and I'm gonna get our. This is gonna be our.
Pilot guy.
This is gonna be our flight paramedic.
Here. That. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Gonna put that back on.
Yeah, sure.
So this is our flight paramedic. When we call the helicopter, a couple things. The fire officer is going to be in charge of that scene. They're going to be an incident commander. They're in charge of setting up a landing zone. Sometimes you need to transport the patient to an area for a landing zone for the helicopter. So you want to make sure it's 100 feet by 100 feet, no hazards. No electrical wires, no trees, monuments, everything else. We want to make sure that there's a 100 by 100 foot space. Anyone on a scene, if the helicopter is landing, if you see something that they might hit, sometimes power lines can be hard to see at night, you can say, Trooper 4, LifeNet, whoever your helicopter is, abort, and they will stop the descent, go back up, and then they'll reevaluate a landing zone. So anyone on a scene, crew resource management, anyone on a scene has the ability to speak up and say something if the helicopter is landing, if you're worried about a safety threat. There should be some dedicated people dedicated only to the landing zone. When you get to the landing zone, you want the helicopter paramedic to come to you. So they do not want you to come rushing towards the helicopter with the patient. So let them move the patient to your ambulance. Let the helicopter medic come to the ambulance and do their assessment there. If you bring them to the helicopter, it's going to be windy. The helicopter medic's not going to be able to do an assessment. Maybe there's some treatment that he wants done before moving him to the helicopter. It's much better to have to do that. It's much easier to do that in the back of their ambulance. Let the helicopter medic come to you. When you do approach the helicopter, you want to approach from the front angle. And if someone from the flight crew is not with you, look for the pilot. When you get near the front of the helicopter, make eye contact with the pilot. They will let you know if it is safe to approach. So either someone with the flight crew is with you or wait for the pilot's signal before you approach. We will always want to avoid the tail rotor. At night you cannot see this. So we're always going to approach from the front, never from the back. And there hopefully will be someone, the pilot may actually be standing out here to make sure that no one gets close to the tail rotor where it's dangerous. So the helicopter medic comes to the ambulance. When you're ready to move the patient out, if you're in the state police helicopter, you're going to go in from the front. You're going to go in from the side with the heads facing the front. So they will come and help you. There's a skid that comes out. You're going to load them. You'll have the patient on a reeves or a backboard. Bring them over in your stretcher. They're going to go in from the side. Straighten them out and there. So now the patient could be loaded into the back here. This is where most other, like if you're with LifeNet or one of the other hospital-based helicopters, they're going to have you load in the back. And in the state police helicopter, this is where you're going to come out when you get to the hospital. But generally, they'll load from the side, out from the back, being extra careful to avoid the tail rotor. So that's a little bit about driving, a little bit about where to park, a little about aviation. We'll hopefully get time to practice this when we come back. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll post that in the class. I just wanted to thank my wife Shauna also for being the camera person, and Henry and Noah for helping me share their Legos with me. So,
I can get a picture of you.